Connor Hughes was just finishing up his evening shift at the Interstellar University. The halls were quiet now, the bustle of students and teachers gone for the day. He pushed his mop across the shiny floor, humming a tune under his breath. Being a janitor was not glamorous, but it was honest work, and it allowed him to take care of his young daughter, Emily. She was waiting at home with a warm dinner and a storybook, and Connor thought about her as he worked. Connor's life was simple but full. He had moved to the city a few years ago, leaving behind small-town life. The university gave him steady work even if the pay was not enough to make him rich. But he did not need riches. What mattered most was Emily. She was smart, full of curiosity, and sometimes mischievous. Connor often found himself thinking about how he could give her a better life, even if he had to work twice as hard. The news of the day had been buzzing through the campus. Everyone was talking about Zelor, the alien billionaire who owned many businesses and planets across the galaxy. He had become famous for his wealth, his strange alien appearance, and his power. Some humans were afraid of him. Others admired him. Connor did not know much about Zelor, and to be honest, he did not care much. He had cleaning to do and a daughter to care for. But today the news felt different. Zelor was returning early from a mission, and everyone at the university was talking about it. Connor pushed his mop past the large windows overlooking the docking bay. He paused for a moment to watch the stars. The docking bay was enormous, filled with different ships from across the galaxy. Human ships, alien ships, old ships, and new ships all crowded together. Connor had seen many ships before, but something about today felt unusual. The air seemed thicker, the hum of energy from the docking bay louder. He shrugged and went back to work, not knowing that his life was about to change. As Connor worked, a voice came over the intercom. "All personnel, the alien billionaire Zelor has arrived earlier than scheduled. Please clear the main docking area." Connor nodded to himself and continued mopping. He had no intention of going to see Zelor. The billionaire's world was far from his own, full of power, money, and influence. That world was not his, but curiosity tugged at him. He walked closer to the windows and watched as a massive ship descended. It was sleek, silver, and unlike anything he had seen before. Lights ran across its surface, changing colors as it landed. The doors opened slowly and the alien stepped out. Connor's eyes widened. Zelor was taller than a human with a long, lean body covered in shimmering scales. His eyes were large and dark, reflecting the light of the docking bay. He wore a long robe, decorated with symbols that humans could not understand. He moved with grace, but there was a sense of power in every step. People in the docking bay bowed or stepped aside. Military officers and diplomats hurried forward, ready to greet him. But then something strange happened. Connor had not planned to go down there, but he found himself moving toward the doors. He felt drawn by a strange sense of curiosity. When Zelor looked up, his eyes fell on Connor. And then he froze. For a moment, the alien billionaire did not move. His mouth opened slightly as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. The crowd around them noticed it too. They gasped and whispered. Zelor, the mighty billionaire, who had never been surprised by anything, was stunned by a human janitor. Connor stopped and stared. He did not know why Zelor was looking at him like that. He was just a janitor holding a mop and bucket. He was tired from work, his hair slightly messy and his clothes stained with cleaning solution. Yet something about his calmness, his simplicity, seemed to hold Zelor's attention. Connor shrugged and said softly, "Can I help you with something?" There was no fear in his voice, no bowing, no flattery, just honesty. Zelor's assistant hurried forward, trying to pull the billionaire along. "My lord, we need to proceed with the welcome ceremony," the assistant said. But Zelor did not move. His gaze stayed on Connor. Connor tilted his head and smiled faintly, thinking the alien looked strange even to otherworldly standards. He did not understand why he mattered to Zelor, but he felt a strange sense of calm in the presence of the billionaire. The crowd began to murmur, and some diplomats whispered to each other. What was happening? How could a janitor make Zelor freeze? Connor did not think about it. He simply looked at Zelor and nodded. "You don't have to be afraid. It's just me," he said gently. That simple phrase seemed to reach the alien billionaire in a way no one had before. Zelor finally blinked and took a step forward, slowly. His voice was deep and resonant. "I did not expect this," he said. The words sounded strange to Connor, but he understood enough. The alien was confused, unsure, and perhaps even humbled. Connor smiled again and said, "Sometimes, the simplest things are the most surprising." He did not realize it, but those words would mark the beginning of a new chapter in both of their lives. Connor felt the tension in the air ease slightly. The crowd was still staring, unsure what to do. Zilor's assistants looked nervous. The human officers seemed puzzled, but Connor just stood there calm and collected. He knew how to handle strange situations. He had learned patience and resilience through years of taking care of Emily on his own. Those qualities shone through now without any effort. Zilor looked at him for a long time, trying to understand. He had traveled across galaxies, met countless leaders, and encountered many strange creatures. Yet a single human janitor had caught him off guard. The thought puzzled him. Connor could feel the weight of Zilor's gaze, but he did not flinch. Instead, he stepped aside, letting the alien move through the docking bay. "The main hall is that way," he said simply. "You will find the people you are looking for there." For a moment, Zilor just stared. Then slowly, he nodded and moved forward, still glancing back at Connor. The billionaire's presence filled the air with energy, yet it seemed smaller somehow, softened by the simple honesty of a human who did not care for wealth or power. Connor watched him go, then turned back to his mop. Life had to continue. He still had floors to clean, and Emily would be waiting for dinner. But he could not ignore the strange feeling that something extraordinary had just begun. As the night grew darker, Connor finished his work and left the university. The city was quiet, lights twinkling in the distance. He walked home thinking about the alien and the strange encounter. He wondered what it meant and if it would change anything for him or for Emily. For now, he pushed the thoughts aside. A warm meal and Emily's smile awaited him, and that was enough. Unbeknownst to Connor, Zilor watched from his ship, intrigued and thoughtful. The billionaire had faced many challenges and adversaries, but none like this. A human janitor, simple and ordinary, had shown him something he had not expected: humility, calm, and the strength that came from caring for others. Zilor did not know it yet, but this meeting would change the course of his journey and perhaps the future of his empire as well. Connor entered his small apartment, greeted by Emily's excited chatter. She ran to him, holding a storybook in her hands. "Daddy, you missed the stars tonight." "They were so bright," she exclaimed. Connor smiled and hugged her. "I saw them, Pumpkin, and they were amazing." He listened to her talk about her day, feeling grateful for the little things. The galaxy was big and mysterious, but here in his apartment, everything was just right. As Connor tucked Emily into bed, he thought about the encounter in the docking bay. The world was bigger than he had ever imagined, filled with wonders and mysteries. And somewhere out there, Zilor, the alien billionaire, was thinking about him too. Connor did not know what the future held, but he felt ready for whatever came next. He had faced challenges before, and he would face more. But one thing was certain: life had a way of surprising even the simplest people, and sometimes those surprises were the start of something incredible. The next morning, Connor Hughes woke up early. The sunlight filtered through the small window of his apartment, touching the clean floors he had worked so hard to maintain. Emily was still asleep, her soft breathing a gentle rhythm in the quiet room. Connor stretched and thought about the previous day. The encounter with Zilor, the alien billionaire, was still fresh in his mind. He did not understand why the meeting had felt so significant, but he knew that something unusual was unfolding. After breakfast, Connor walked to the university, bucket and mop in hand. The halls were busier than the night before, filled with students hurrying to their classes. Everyone seemed excited about Zilor's presence. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Zilor was interested in investing in human technology. Others believed he had come to test humanity, or even to choose someone to lead a new project. Connor did not pay much attention to the gossip. He had work to do, and he knew that everyday tasks required his focus. As he moved through the corridors, Connor noticed the security was tighter than usual. Officers stationed themselves at key points, scanning everyone who passed. Signs of the billionaire's presence were everywhere. Posters, alerts, and news feeds on screens reminded everyone that Zilor was on campus. Connor shook his head and smiled. He had never cared much for the fame of wealthy people. For him, life was about simpler things: hard work, honesty, and Emily. When he reached the docking bay, He saw that Zelor's ship had moved to a new position. Workers were unloading supplies and technicians hurried about, checking the ship's systems. Connor paused for a moment to watch. He felt a strange pull, a curiosity he could not shake. Then he noticed a small figure stepping out from the crowd, Zelor himself. The alien billionaire's eyes scanned the area, and when they fell on Connor, he froze again. It was as if the memory of yesterday's encounter had etched itself into his mind. Connor felt a mix of amusement and nervousness. He did not know why Zelor was staring, but he knew that the alien's reaction yesterday was unusual. Connor continued his work, pretending not to notice. He swept the floor and wiped down surfaces, careful not to disturb the activity around him. Yet he felt a presence behind him, strong and commanding. When he looked up, Zelor was there, walking toward him, slower this time, his gaze curious rather than frozen. "You are the janitor who startled me yesterday," Zelor said. His voice was low, deep, and carried a strange authority. Connor nodded politely. "Yes, that's me. I clean the halls, take care of the floors, and make sure everything is in order." He did not bow or act afraid. He spoke as he always did, simply and honestly. Zelor seemed intrigued. "You are not afraid of me?" he asked. His tone carried both surprise and curiosity. Connor shook his head. "Why should I be? You are just a visitor here like anyone else. I have work to do and life goes on." His words were simple, but they carried weight. Zelor had encountered countless humans, but rarely had one faced him with such calmness. The billionaire tilted his head, studying Connor closely. Then he spoke again. "Most humans would be trembling, bowing, or praising me. But not you," Connor shrugged. "I respect people, not titles or money. That is all." He returned to his work, showing no fear. Zelor took a step closer, his scales glimmering in the morning light, and asked, "Why do you care for your life so simply, when you could desire power, wealth, or influence?" Connor paused and looked at him. "I have something more valuable than those things. I have my daughter. I want to give her a good life, love her, and teach her right from wrong. That is more important than any riches or power." Zelor's eyes widened. He had traveled across galaxies, met powerful leaders, and yet a human's words could unsettle him. The alien billionaire then asked, "Do you not wish for more? To rise beyond your station?" Connor shook his head. "Life is not about rising above. It is about living honestly and making the best of what you have. Happiness does not come from wealth or fear. It comes from simple things like love and hard work." His words made a small pause in the bustling dock. Workers stopped for a moment, sensing the unusual conversation. Zelor felt something stir within him. He had seen ambition, greed, and power, but not this. Connor's humility and quiet strength were unlike anything he had encountered. Zelor took a few more steps, watching Connor's movements, his calm demeanor, and the way he cared for the space around him. Then, almost as if testing him, he asked, "Can someone like you influence others?" Connor smiled faintly. "I influence the people I can every day. Even small acts matter. A kind word, a clean hallway, a helping hand, they all matter." He paused, glancing at the distant city through the docking bay windows. Change does not always come from power. It comes from simple, honest actions. Zelor remained silent, contemplating the words. Connor finished his cleaning and packed up his supplies. Zelor followed him, his curiosity unyielding. The billionaire was used to attention, commands, and control. Here he had none. He was being drawn into a human world he did not understand. Connor walked through the corridors, occasionally nodding to students and staff. Some glanced at the unusual pair. An alien billionaire walking with a janitor was not a common sight. Yet Connor treated it as normal, and that normalcy fascinated Zelor. They arrived at a small meeting room where Zelor gestured for Connor to sit. The billionaire himself remained standing, observing. "I have seen many things in my life," Zelor said, "but you are different. How is it that someone so ordinary can have such strength?" Connor looked up from the chair, meeting Zelor's gaze. "Strength is not always shown in power or wealth. Sometimes it is quiet, in caring for others, in honesty and persistence. That is the kind of strength I have." He spoke simply, without any attempt to impress. His words resonated, and Zelor felt the weight of their truth. The billionaire leaned closer, curious and cautious. "Teach me about humans," he said. "I have studied them, observed them, yet I do not understand them fully. You seem to understand what others do not." Connor chuckled softly. "I do not understand everything either. I just live my life, care for my daughter, and try to be honest. That is the best I can do. But if you want to learn, I can help. You will need patience and respect for the simple things. Zalor nodded slowly, realizing that there was wisdom in this human he had never expected. Over the next few hours, Connor explained small aspects of human life. He spoke of family, work, trust, honesty, and kindness. He shared stories about Emily, the joys and struggles of raising her alone. He talked about friendship, responsibility, and community. Zalor listened intently, asking questions, trying to understand the human perspective. For a being who had traveled across galaxies, built empires, and commanded vast armies, the lessons of a single human janitor were surprisingly profound. By mid-afternoon, Zalor had gained a new respect for Connor. He had expected flattery, obedience, or perhaps fear. Instead, he had found honesty, patience, and an unshakable sense of duty. The lessons Connor taught were not from books or lectures. They came from life experience, from love, responsibility, and perseverance. Zalor realized that humanity had a strength that could not be measured in technology or money alone. As the day ended, Connor returned to his cleaning duties, leaving Zalor to process the lessons he had learned. The billionaire remained in the room, deep in thought, considering how to apply these insights to his empire and his dealings on Earth. Connor, unaware of the full impact he had on Zalor, continued his work, focused on the simple tasks that brought order and comfort to his world. When Connor left the university that evening, he felt tired, but satisfied. Emily was waiting at home, and that was all that mattered. Yet he could not help but wonder how this unusual encounter would unfold. Zalor had returned early, and a single janitor had caught his attention. What would happen next? Connor did not know, but he felt ready. Life was full of surprises, and sometimes the smallest people could make the biggest difference. As night fell, Zalor watched the city from his ship, thinking about the human who had taught him so much in such a short time. He had come to Earth with expectations of wealth, control, and influence. Instead, he had found humility, patience, and quiet strength. The lessons were simple yet profound, and Zalor knew they would change the way he saw humanity forever. The alien billionaire had returned early, but it was a human janitor who had stopped him in his tracks, showing him a new path and a new understanding of life. The next morning, Connor Hughes arrived at the university with his usual determination. The halls were alive with students moving to their classes, and the sound of chatter echoed off the walls. Today felt different, though. There was a sense of expectation in the air. People whispered as Connor passed by, glancing at him with curiosity. Some had already heard that Zalor, the alien billionaire, had taken an unusual interest in him. Connor ignored the attention and went about his work, carrying his mop and bucket with steady hands. Connor's first stop was the main lobby. The large windows let in the morning light shining across the polished floors. He worked methodically, sweeping and mopping, making sure everything looked perfect. Even in his simple tasks, Connor took pride. Clean floors, organized spaces, and order made the day feel manageable, even in the midst of chaos. Today, that chaos included Zalor and his entourage, who had moved into a special area of the university for meetings and strategy sessions. Connor noticed the alien billionaire moving through the halls with fewer guards than before. Today, Zalor seemed less formal, more observant. He walked slowly, studying the students and staff as if trying to understand them. Connor felt a moment of unease. Zalor's gaze met his, and he froze briefly. The billionaire's eyes, large and dark, seemed to penetrate deep into Connor's thoughts. Yet Connor remained calm. He had learned that fear would not help anyone, not even himself. Zalor approached Connor and spoke in his low, resonant voice. "You seem to understand people better than many leaders I have met. How do you do this?" Connor paused, considering how to answer. "I don't understand everything," he said simply. "I just pay attention, I listen. I care about people, and I try to do what is right. Sometimes that is all you need to understand them." Zalor nodded, as if absorbing the wisdom. The billionaire had spent lifetimes acquiring knowledge, but he realized that some things could only be learned through human experience. The two began walking through the halls together. Connor explained more about human life, small details that often went unnoticed. He spoke of how people relied on each other, the importance of trust, and how simple acts of kindness could have a ripple effect. He described family dinners, friendships, and moments of joy that were not connected to wealth or power. Zelor listened intently, asking questions that revealed his curiosity and his desire to understand. Connor also told stories about Emily, his daughter. He explained how he balanced work and parenting, how he taught her to be independent, kind, and respectful. He spoke about the challenges he faced raising a child alone in a busy city, and how he overcame them with patience and determination. Zelor seemed particularly fascinated by the relationship between Connor and Emily, noting the strength that came from such dedication. The billionaire paused at a window overlooking the city. "Your world is complex," he said, "yet you find a way to navigate it with so little. How do you maintain hope and strength?" Connor smiled faintly. "Hope comes from caring about the right things. Strength comes from facing what you must, not what you want. Life gives challenges to everyone, but it also gives people the chance to grow. That is what matters most." Zelor reflected on these words. In all his travels and dealings, he had rarely heard such clarity and honesty. As they walked, Zelor noticed the staff and students watching. Some were curious, others whispered about the unusual pair. Yet Connor acted as if nothing were out of the ordinary. This nonchalance seemed to intrigue the billionaire even more. Connor's humility and calmness contrasted sharply with Zelor's usual world of power, wealth, and fear. It was a world the billionaire thought he understood, but Connor showed him otherwise. Connor led Zelor to a smaller lounge area where the staff often took breaks. The room was simple, with comfortable chairs and a few tables. Connor gestured for Zelor to sit. "It is quieter here," he said. "You can observe without all the attention." Zelor studied the space, noting the simplicity and warmth. It was a human environment, unadorned and functional, yet it carried a sense of comfort and care. Connor continued, "Humans find happiness in small things. A clean room, a shared meal, laughter with friends. You cannot measure these in credits or technology. You can only feel them." Zelor nodded slowly. The billionaire had seen many worlds, many species, and many forms of wealth. Yet the simplicity of human happiness was something entirely different. It was not a commodity, not a resource, it was life itself. They spent hours discussing human nature, morality, and the small, everyday decisions that shaped society. Connor spoke with patience and clarity, using examples from his own life and the lives of those around him. He explained how humans faced failure, loss, and fear, yet continued to strive forward. He described how people found courage not through weapons or power, but through love, hope, and determination. Zelor listened, his mind absorbing ideas that no amount of technology or wealth could teach. Later, Zelor asked about Connor's dreams. "Do you not wish for more than cleaning floors and taking care of your daughter?" Connor shook his head. "I have everything I need. My daughter, my home, my work, they give me purpose. Dreams are not always about reaching higher or gaining more. Sometimes they are about doing your best with what you have." Zelor was struck by the profound simplicity of this answer. He had spent lifetimes chasing what he thought was important. Yet here was a human who found fulfillment in the basics of life. Connor told Zelor about his childhood, growing up in a small town, learning the value of hard work, honesty, and kindness. He shared stories of challenges he faced, mistakes he made, and lessons he learned. Through these stories, Zelor began to see a pattern. Humans, even the simplest ones, carried resilience and wisdom that could not be taught in schools or learned through observation alone. It was born from experience, struggle, and the desire to protect and nurture those they loved. As the afternoon wore on, Zelor became more open, sharing some of his own experiences and mistakes. Connor listened without judgment, simply acknowledging the alien's honesty. This mutual understanding, rare between humans and aliens, began to form a bridge. Zelor realized that power and wealth were meaningless without understanding, compassion, and humility. Connor's simple explanations had opened his eyes in ways he had never imagined. Connor then led Zelor to the cafeteria, where students and staff were having their lunch. He pointed out examples of human behavior, how people interacted, helped each other, and resolved conflicts. He explained the importance of empathy, fairness, and trust. Zelor observed quietly, making mental notes. For a being accustomed to commanding empires and fleets, the nuances of human life were both fascinating and confusing. By evening, Connor had finished his work for the day. He packed up his supplies and prepared to leave. Zelor followed him to the exit, still deep in thought. You have taught me much today, Zelor said. I have seen power, wealth, and fear, but none of that compares to what I have learned from you. Connor smiled. We all have lessons to share in our own way. Sometimes it is the smallest people who teach the biggest lessons. Zelor nodded, understanding the truth in the words. As Connor walked home, he felt a sense of accomplishment, not for the cleaning he had done, but for the connection he had made. He had shared a part of humanity that was rarely seen by outsiders, especially those from distant galaxies. Emily's laughter and warmth awaited him at home, and that was enough to keep him grounded. Zelor returned to his ship, reflecting on the day. He had come to Earth expecting wealth, control, and influence. Instead, he had encountered patience, humility, and simple wisdom. The alien billionaire realized that the human janitor had shown him a new way of seeing the world. Connor's life, though ordinary by most standards, carried lessons that Zelor could apply to his empire and his understanding of humans. That night, as the city lights twinkled below, Zelor made plans to return to his work with a new perspective. He understood that power was meaningless without understanding, and influence was incomplete without empathy. Connor Hughes, a simple janitor, had changed the way he saw humans and their world. And for Connor, life would continue as usual, yet the impact of his words and presence would ripple further than he could imagine. The following morning, Connor Hughes arrived at the university with his mop and bucket as usual. The halls were lively with students moving to their classes, laughing and talking. Today, however, there was an unusual tension. People whispered and looked at Connor as he passed. Word had spread that Zelor, the alien billionaire, was taking a personal interest in him. Connor ignored the attention, focused on his cleaning duties, and moved methodically through the corridors. Zelor had requested a private meeting with Connor earlier that morning. When the janitor finished his tasks, he found a sleek, quiet room set up for them. Zelor was already there, pacing slowly. His scales shimmered under the light, and his eyes were wide with curiosity. You have taught me much about humans, Zelor began, but I wish to learn more. Will you help me understand our world better? Connor paused, considering the request. It was unusual, certainly, but he agreed. I can try, he said simply. I will show you what humans do and how we live our lives. They started with the university library. Connor explained how humans sought knowledge, studied, and shared ideas. He showed Zelor how students researched, learned, and discussed topics together. Zelor watched intently as Connor pointed out examples of human cooperation and curiosity. I see, Zelor said quietly. Humans are complex. You work together, but you also question each other, challenge ideas. It is different from how we operate. Connor nodded. Yes, we make mistakes, but we learn from them. That is how we grow. As they walked through the campus, Connor introduced Zelor to various staff members and students. He explained small human traditions, greetings, ways of showing respect, and simple acts of kindness. Zelor observed everything, fascinated by the interactions. He noted how humans helped each other, even in small ways. A student helped another pick up fallen papers. A teacher offered guidance without demanding anything in return. Zelor found these small acts more impressive than any wealth or technology he had ever seen. Connor then took Zelor to the student lounge, where people relaxed, laughed, and shared their day. He explained that happiness often came from these small, simple moments. We do not need grand displays of power or wealth to find joy, Connor said. We find it in our friends, our families, and in moments like these. Zelor watched quietly, absorbing the lessons. He realized that humans were resilient, capable of joy even in difficult circumstances, and that their strength came not from technology, but from relationships and empathy. After the tour, Connor led Zelor to a quiet courtyard. Flowers grew in neat rows, and the sound of birds added calm to the space. Here Connor spoke about his own life. He shared stories about raising Emily, his struggles, and his small victories. He spoke of hard work, honesty, and the responsibility of caring for another life. Zelor listened, fascinated. He had traveled across galaxies and commanded empires, but he had never encountered someone who carried such strength and simplicity. Zelor asked about Connor's motivations. Why do you do all of this for one child? Connor smiled. Because she matters more than anything else. Life gives us challenges, but it also gives us people to care for. That care is more important than any empire or technology. It gives life meaning. Zelor remained silent, contemplating the words. He had understood the power of influence, but the power of love and care was a new concept. Connor's dedication to Emily revealed a different kind of strength. Later, Connor introduced Zelor to practical human life. He showed him how people cooked simple meals, cleaned their spaces, and maintained daily routines. He explained that these tasks, though ordinary, built character and responsibility. Zelor observed the care humans put into their daily lives, realizing that discipline and consistency were as important as innovation and strategy. He began to understand why humans could endure hardships and continue to thrive. Connor then spoke about community and trust. He explained how humans relied on each other, forming bonds that could withstand challenges. He shared stories of neighbors helping one another, friends supporting each other, and strangers showing kindness without expectation. Zelor found this surprising and enlightening. In his experience, loyalty and trust were often tied to power or reward. Here he saw a form of loyalty and compassion that existed purely for the benefit of others. As the day progressed, Zelor asked more questions about human behavior. Connor explained the importance of emotions, communication, and empathy. He spoke about how humans resolved conflicts through understanding and compromise. He described moments of bravery, selflessness, and perseverance. Zelor listened closely, realizing that these qualities made humans strong in ways that were difficult to measure. Connor also introduced Zelor to the concept of patience. He explained that change did not happen quickly, and growth required time and effort. He used examples from his own life, raising Emily, learning new skills, and helping others, to illustrate how persistence led to meaningful results. Zelor, used to immediate results and rapid decision-making, found this concept challenging but valuable. He began to see that patience was a hidden strength of humanity. During a quiet moment, Connor shared a personal story about a mistake he had made and how he had learned from it. He spoke honestly without shame or embarrassment, showing that humans accepted failure as part of life. Zelor absorbed the lesson. In his world, failure was often punished or hidden, but here it was embraced as an opportunity to grow. The billionaire began to reconsider his own approach to leadership and decision-making. As the sun set, Connor and Zelor returned to the main hall. The day had been long, full of lessons and observations. Zelor's expression was thoughtful. He had come to Earth expecting to assert power and influence, but he had found something entirely different. The humility, patience, and strength of one human had challenged his assumptions and taught him lessons no empire could offer. Connor finished his work and packed up his cleaning supplies. He walked through the halls, nodding to students and staff, maintaining his calm demeanor. Zelor followed silently, deep in thought. The billionaire realized that his perspective had shifted. Power and wealth were not the only measures of strength. Humans, even in their simplest forms, carried wisdom, resilience, and compassion that could not be bought or commanded. When Connor left the university that evening, Emily greeted him with a smile and a storybook. He hugged her and listened to her excited chatter, feeling grateful for the warmth of home and family. The lessons he had shared with Zelor would continue to resonate, even if the billionaire did not fully realize it yet. Connor's life remained simple, but the impact of his words and actions had begun to ripple beyond his immediate world. Zelor returned to his ship, contemplating the day's experiences. He'd learned about human life, strength, and values in a way that no report, observation, or analysis could convey. Connor Hughes, a single dad and janitor, had shown him the depth and resilience of humanity. The billionaire recognized that these lessons would influence his decisions, his approach to Earth, and perhaps even the future of his empire. That night, the city below twinkled with lights and the quiet hum of life continued. Connor and Emily rested peacefully, unaware of the full impact of their interactions with Zelor. Yet, the simple truth remained. Ordinary people living honest and caring lives could teach the greatest beings of the galaxy lessons that no wealth or power could match. And for Zelor, this realization was only the beginning of a journey that would change both his world and humanity's understanding of him. The next morning, Connor Hughes woke up early, as he always did. The sunlight shone through his small apartment window, touching the floor he had worked hard to keep clean. Emily was still asleep, and Connor paused for a moment to watch her. Her peaceful face reminded him why he worked so hard every day. Today, however, felt different. Something was shifting in the air, a quiet sense of change that he could not yet understand. Connor arrived at the university, mop and bucket in hand. The halls were busy, filled with students hurrying to classes and teachers moving between offices. Word of his unusual interactions with Zelor, the alien billionaire, had spread even further. People looked at him with curiosity and sometimes whispered as he passed. Connor ignored the attention. His work was to keep the university clean and functioning, not to impress anyone. Zelor had asked to meet Connor again, this time, to continue their conversations about humanity and to discuss more practical applications. Connor followed the billionaire to a quiet conference room. Zelor's eyes were bright with curiosity and thoughtfulness. "You have taught me much," Zelor said, "but I wish to understand how humans face challenges in groups, communities, and societies. Will you guide me?" Connor nodded. "I can show you what I know. Human strength is not just in one person, but in how we care for each other and work together." They began with a tour of the university's research labs and classrooms. Connor introduced Zelor to students working on projects, showing him how humans combined ideas, debated, and learned from mistakes. He explained that collaboration, communication, and understanding were key to human success. Zelor observed the interactions carefully, noting the trust and respect shared among students and teachers. "This is different from how we operate," Zelor said. "In my world, success is often solitary, built on power and command. Here, strength comes from cooperation and mutual respect." Connor nodded. Yes, humans thrive when they support each other. Even small acts of cooperation can lead to big results. Next, Connor took Zelor to the campus gardens, a quiet space where students and staff could relax. He explained how humans found balance and focus through nature and routine. "Life is not always about work or achievement," Connor said. "Sometimes taking care of yourself and your surroundings helps you face challenges better." Zelor watched the students tending plants and noted the calm and satisfaction it brought them. He realized that human resilience was not just mental or physical, but emotional and social as well. As they walked, Connor shared stories about his own life. He spoke of raising Emily alone, the daily struggles and the small victories. He explained how challenges taught him patience, resourcefulness, and determination. Zelor listened, fascinated by the strength that came from simple responsibilities. "Your life is humble yet filled with power," Zelor remarked. Connor smiled. "Power is not about control or wealth. It is about being responsible and caring for what matters most. For me, that is my daughter." Connor introduced Zelor to community service projects run by students. They helped local neighborhoods, assisted with repairs, and supported families in need. Connor explained that humans found purpose and fulfillment in helping others, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Zelor observed, learning that true influence and leadership came from service, not authority. He had commanded empires, yet the simple acts of humans inspired him in ways his power never had. In the afternoon, they visited a small city market near the university. Connor showed Zelor how humans traded, negotiated, and supported each other in everyday life. He explained the values of honesty, fairness, and patience in business and social interactions. Zelor noticed that even in simple transactions, humans exhibited principles that maintained trust and harmony. He realized that human society relied on networks of trust and integrity, not just rules and enforcement. Connor shared more personal insights with Zelor. He spoke about the lessons he learned from mistakes, the importance of admitting errors, and the value of learning from failures. Zelor found this remarkable. In his experience, mistakes were often hidden or punished. Here they were opportunities for growth. The billionaire began to see that resilience was not only about enduring hardships, but also about learning and adapting with honesty and humility. As evening approached, Connor invited Zelor to his home to meet Emily. The apartment was modest but warm, filled with signs of a loving life. Emily greeted Zelor with a shy smile, and Connor introduced them. Zelor was fascinated by the child, noting the bond between father and daughter. Connor explained that raising Emily had taught him lessons no other experiences could: patience, unconditional love, and the importance of guiding the next generation. Zelor realized that nurturing life was a strength humans possessed that no alien power could replicate. Connor cooked a simple dinner while Zelor watched. He explained how cooking was not just about feeding oneself, but also about care, routine, and sharing with others. The billionaire observed the care in Connor's movements and the joy Emily showed in helping. This ordinary family scene impressed Zelor more than any grand display of wealth or technology he had ever witnessed. After dinner, Connor and Zelor sat together, talking about life, challenges, and dreams. Connor shared his hopes for Emily, his desire to teach her values, and his belief in the goodness of people. Zelor listened quietly, absorbing every word. The alien billionaire realized that the human experience was layered with lessons that no analysis or observation alone could reveal. It was lived, felt, and taught through daily choices and care for others. Before leaving, Zelor spoke thoughtfully. "You have shown me strength, wisdom, and humility that no empire could teach. Your life, though simple, carries lessons that are extraordinary." Connor smiled, brushing off the compliment. "I do what I can every day. That is all any of us can do." Zelor understood that simplicity, honesty, and care were often more powerful than wealth, power, or status. When Zelor returned to his ship, he reflected on all he had learned. Connor Hughes, a single dad and janitor, had shown him a new way to see humanity. The billionaire realized that human strength was rooted in relationships, empathy, and perseverance. He began planning how to apply these lessons in his interactions with Earth and across the galaxy. Connor's wisdom had reshaped his understanding of power and influence. Connor, meanwhile, tucked Emily into bed, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day well lived. He did not fully grasp the impact he had on Zelor, but he knew that living honestly, caring for Emily, and teaching her right from wrong were the most important accomplishments of his life. Outside, the city hummed with life, and above, Zelor's ship prepared for new decisions influenced by the lessons of a simple human janitor. That night, Connor and Emily slept peacefully. In the distance, Zelor observed the city, contemplating how small, ordinary acts of humans could teach the greatest beings of the galaxy about strength, resilience, and compassion. The alien billionaire had returned early expecting power and control, yet it was a simple janitor's life and wisdom that had left the most profound impression. Connor's actions and choices had shown that ordinary humans could achieve extraordinary influence, not through wealth or status, but through honesty, love, and perseverance.